Gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my top 5 Sixth Doctor stories ranking. I will be ranking my top 5 Doctor Who stories from the Sixth Doctor's era. I'm only doing 5 because there's only 11 stories with the Sixth Doctor, if you count Trial of a Time Lord as 4 separate stories, and if you don't, then it's 8 stories. So I'll be counting the 4 segments of Trial of a Time Lord as 4 separate stories, so that they can have their own positions on the overall ranking. There's not many Sixth Doctor stories, I'm afraid, and the same will be going for 7 and 9 when we get to them. There was just about enough for 2nd and 5th, and once Series 12 comes out, 13 as well, there's just enough for top 10s for them, without having 1 or 2 just missing out or something, or not having enough in some cases. So the Sixth Doctor ranking. Before we start, I want to make a special honourable mention. This is not a proper honourable mention because this is audio, not TV, but a special honourable shout-out mention to the Sixth Doctor, The Last Adventure story, and all 4 stories of this audio series are ones you should definitely check out if you can, because it gives us the Sixth Doctor's regeneration story that we deserve, and it's brilliantly done. Nicholas Briggs did a great job writing and directing that story, and the other 4 stories of that series, written by Simon Barnard, Paul Morris, Alan Barnes, and Matt Fitton. The first story was written by the first 2 writers. They do it's an all brilliant story that sets up a plan by the Valeyard to get rid of the Doctor once and for all, and the Doctor has to sacrifice himself, or at least his particular incarnation, in order to stop the Valeyard, and therefore sacrificing himself and leading into the events of Time Nirani, regenerating into the 7th Doctor, who we will see next time. I just wanted to give that one a special shout out because it was a great series, and if I was including that on this list, I think it would probably take up at least 2, maybe even 3 spots on the list. So we'll jump straight into the ranking of the television stories, but first of all, a dishonourable and honourable mentions for TV only. I just wanted to give the audio series a shout out, because it was such a great series and it did such a great job of wrapping up the Sixth Doctor's era chronologically with the last story. But my dishonourable mention starts his era overall on a pretty negative note, and that is, of course, the Twin Dilemma. Yeah, despite me not going into a rant about this is definitely a bad story. I don't deny that. I'm not saying it's the worst story of all time, like a lot of people are saying, and it didn't get me annoyed enough or angry enough to even rant about it, which surprised me, I know. Maybe I should have, but I didn't feel like it. I just talked about it normally, a bit quite negatively, but didn't get angry with it. Something I feel might happen with Time Nirani, but you know what? I said that might happen with Twin Dilemma, so things change, although I'm pretty sure it will happen with Time Nirani. But yeah, Twin Dilemma is definitely still the weakest Sixth Doctor story. There's no doubt about that. The other ones are so better. Some close to being weak, but despite me not going into a rant about that story, I still consider it the weakest Sixth Doctor story there was some close, almost as bad, but still easily the weakest one. But it wasn't bad enough for me to go into a rant about it in the review, unlike a few other stories that pissed me off, even a couple that I gave a higher score to, like Revenge of the Cybermen, for example. But yeah, it depends on your opinion. If you think it's worth ranting about, fair enough. But on the whole, it's still the weakest Sixth Doctor story, even after all these years. However, my honourable mention goes to a Sixth Doctor story that I actually think is quite underrated. I think it's a good story. I think it's got some good writing, some great acting, some great directing, great visuals, and I think the Doctor's character is done well. Not as good as the story beforehand, but still done really well. And my honourable mention goes to The Mark of the Rani. Yeah, originally Revelation of the Daleks was actually on the proper list, but then that actually went down below the score that I gave Mark of the Rani in the review. So that one, so I'm not including Revelation of the Daleks on this list, and it's not my honourable mention. There's some good stories from season 23 that managed to get onto the list. So Mark of the Rani has become my honourable mention. I actually think it's an underrated story. Then again, I think quite a few of the Sixth Doctor ones are underrated. But this one in particular, I think, is the most underrated story, because I think it's a good story, got some good writing. I actually think Pip and Jane Baker's only bad story could actually be Time of the Rani, depending on what I think of that after rewatching it. But I think that might be their only bad story, because I think Time of the Rani is a good story. I really like the setting. I think it's got some great characters. First time we see historical characters in a Doctor Who story since season 3, which William Hartnell, and yeah, I just think it's handled very well. Maybe part 2 isn't quite as good as part 1, but I still think it's good, and it's got some great stuff going on in the story. So yeah, I like it. I think it's a good story and handled well. So yeah, I enjoy it. I think it's the most underrated Sixth Doctor story out of all of them. And yeah, I like it. I think it's good. Okay, into the ranking properly, this time with number 5. Number 5 I wasn't a huge fan of before rewatching it, and really liking it and then I really liked it. I thought it was really great on the rewatch, and I thought it was handled really well. The Trial of a Time Lord, parts 5 to 8, the second segment, Mind Warp. The sort of sequel to Vengeance on Varos, replacing the original sequel to Vengeance on Varos, Mission to Magnus, which I think would be even better. But Mind Warp is where the Trial of a Time Lord story arc, after the Mysterious Planet, which was a pretty weak opening, and I think that one might be my next least favourite Sixth Doctor story after Time Twin Dilemma. That or Time Lash, actually. I think I enjoyed Time Lash more, so actually I think that one would be next. But Mysterious Planets didn't really start the story off that well. The entirety of Trial of a Time Lord as a story, it didn't really start off that well. However, Mind Warp kicks it into gear, and with a great segment story. The trial stuff does not affect it too much. They only appear when they need to, and seem the story really well, unlike Mysterious Planets. And yeah, it doesn't become jarring when it's stopped, and actually the tension is wrapped up a bit more. The Sixth Doctor being evil is a nice, not a nice, but a good way, a good new direction, and you can only do that. And I think the Sixth Doctor is the only one you could make evil if you were trying to go down that story arc and the story temporarily. I mean, if it was a bigger story, maybe you could do it with another Doctor, but for something like this, I think only the Sixth Doctor, maybe Series 8, 12th Doctor, but possibly that, then Sixth Doctor. But yeah, and I think it's all handled really well, and I think this is Peri's finest hours since possibly Twin Dilemma, if not then Caves of Androzani, although Revelation of the Daleks did have some great character points for her. But yeah, I think it's a great story. I can understand why some people may not like it. I wasn't really a big fan of it before rewatching it. However, after rewatching it, I really like it, and in some people's case, they absolutely love it, and I can see why. I mean, I'm kind of in the middle. I'm kind of like I like it a lot. Consider it one of the best stories of this era, but I won't flat out love it. Hence why it's number 5 on this list. But still a really great story, and a great way to kickstart. And a great way to get the Trial of a Time Lord into gear, because at this point, before it started, because the first story had kind of started off in a note, this story managed to up it a little bit, and thank goodness it did, because thanks to this story, it made the next 2 even better. I mean, yeah, my Terror of the Vervoids will not be on this list, but it made that story better. But it made the trial stuff of that story better, and I kind of enjoyed that story as well. I thought Terror of the Vervoids was fun, but I think Mind Warp just was a more crafted story, and it might possibly be the best written of the series, or at least of the 3 bits before the finale, the 3 4-part segments. It's definitely that. But the best story of season 23 comes at the very end, and that's my number 4 choice. Number 4 is The Trial of a Time Lord, parts 13 to 14. The Ultimate Foe. Yeah, I just think this is a brilliant way to end the season, and possibly the best season finale since Shada. If that doesn't count, then since Tanza Wang Chang, although I did like the Invasion of Time and the Armageddon Factor. And this streak of season openers, we're not going to have that great season finales until season 25, when we get to Remembrance of the Daleks and The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, which are the season 25 opening and closing stories respectively. And 26 would also have a fantastic season finale. It also has a very good opener as well. And then of course there's the new series, but that's discussions for other times. But I think Ultimate Foe is actually a really good season finale to this season, and I think it wraps up the story started with Mysterious Planets and weaved through Mind Warp and Terror of the Vervoids on the way, and it wraps up really well. And I think it's just handled very good. I think it's very good. In fact, at time of recording, I actually saw that story only a few hours ago, and I've been able to do the final few Sixth Doctor videos apart from Last Adventure, which was already done. I think I did that right after the Mind Warp video, but it came out just between the season 23 and ranking and this video. But yeah, Ultimate Foe, very good final story. And whilst it's a shame that the Sixth Doctor didn't get a proper regeneration story on screen, again, go to this for the definitive Sixth Doctor regeneration story. Go to this series. Go to the last episode. It's really good. But in terms of his final TV appearance, and even since the story, we haven't actually had him back properly. I mean, stock footage cameo, I guess, and also whatever they did with Name of the Doctor, but as a proper reappearance on television, the Sixth Doctor has not properly returned. Again, 60th anniversary is coming up, and I don't know if I mentioned it in this ranking, but definitely in the season 23 ranking, I did say you could have the Valiard in that, if he wasn't going to appear in a regular episode alongside 13 or any successors. But yeah, 60th anniversary is coming up, or a potential Children Need special like Time Crash did for the Fifth Doctor. The only excuse for not doing it is Colin's age, but even then you can probably get around that the same way Time Crash did, or using makeup or visual effects, or maybe an animated episode would be nice, like Infinite Quest or Dreamlands. That'd be nice, and you just need Colin to do voice, which he does regularly at Big Finish for, so not a problem. But that's all just wishful thinking, and in the end, this is the final Sixth Doctor story. In the end, that's all just wishful thinking, and this is the final on-screen Sixth Doctor story until he at least returns, and it's the final incumbent one after that. But it's still really great and really well done, and I just really enjoyed it and thought it was a great story. Moving on to number 3. Now, as I said, I think my top 3 were going to be season 22 stories when I was doing those reviews, and I was right. The top 3 stories of season 22 are my top 3 Sixth Doctor stories. So, number 3 is another Philip Martin story, of course, the first story to feature Sil, Vengeance on Varos. Yeah, this is just a great crafted story. I love how it's taking a look at in the people's inspiration, people's depiction of violence on screen, and how they enjoy watching it. And I think, as I mentioned in my season 22 ranking, I think the British public loved public executions in the past, so it's sort of a play on that, as well as the Video Nasties Moral Panic, which I've discussed already. But it's a nice, interesting case. And yeah, and it's got some necessary violence, which is this is a counter argument against the arguments made at the time for the show being too violent. There is necessary violence. It's there to show to create the atmosphere, to show the story, and I think it's done really well. It's got some great characters, some great themes, and yeah, it's just brilliant. Martin Jarvis makes another return Martin Jarvis returns to play another character. He's done a few in the past before, and he's really great. Neil Shaban's great still. That slimy security chief guy, he's good, and he's a good villain. And you've got some great side characters along the way. And Jason Connery, Sean Connery's son, gives a great performance as the rebel Jonda. Some really great stuff and some really great ideas, and I think this might be the best performance of the best character development, and I think this might be the best characterization of the Sixth Doctor, or at least before Ultimate Foe anyway. Although Trial of a Time Lord did have some great characterization of the Sixth Doctor. I think Vengeance manages to get the best of 22 and 23 Sixth Doctor down really well. So that's really great, and yeah, it's got some great stuff and some really creative and imaginative ideas. Also, fun fact: the woman playing Etta, one of the people watching the executions and announcements and all that stuff, the actress who plays her will go on to play Clara's Nan in The Time of the Doctor and Dark Water. So that's a nice little piece of fact, nice little that's a nice little piece of trivia. And like I said, Martin Jarvis was a character a few times in a few other stories. He was definitely in the Web Planet as the one of the Butterfly Men, one of the Menopteras. I don't know what other ones he did, but he's certainly done that. And I think he did one or two others in the 70s. And I think he did one or two audios as well. He has done. I think he was in Jubilee, I might be wrong, which is a Sixth Doctor audio with a Dalek. At least one Dalek, and companion Evelyn Smythe, I believe. But yeah, Martin Jarvis is a great guest star here, and it's just absolutely brilliant. Yeah, really great story, and still was a bit of a formidable villain. Like I said, I think he's better in Mind Warp, but he's certainly really good here. And this is also one of the two most popular Sixth Doctor stories, along with my number 2 choice. Number 2 is a story that does have a little bit of unnecessary violence in its third episode. This is a 3-part story from season 22, so I think you know what story this is. But besides that, there's quite a lot of good stuff in this story. Some other nitpicks as well, though. The Two Doctors. Patrick Troughton and Fraser Hines return to as guest stars in this story as the Second Doctor and Jamie, teaming up with Sixth Doctor Colin Baker and Perry Nicola Bryant to fight two Sontarans who are admittedly too tall. They're good actors, but they're too tall. I still prefer them to the ones from the Invasion of Time, but they're still too tall. And they're also up against Andragam Chesini, played by Jacqueline Pearce, who is possibly the best villain of this season after Davros and maybe the Cyber Leader. But as much as I love the Master and the Rani, I thought Chesini was the best villain after Davros and the Cyber Leader. But yeah, she's brilliant. And Dastari is also a good side character, and Shockeye. He's always fun to watch, even if he's got some of the weaker moments of the story, like him stabbing Oscar for no particular reason, and him going pretty one at the end of part 2 when he's about to grab Perry for his food. It does look a little bit rapey, although we know he's not going to rape her, he's going to try and eat her, which, depending on who you are, might be worse. Yeah, also even worse than that is both, which would be disgusting, but oh well. This is Shockeye. Shockeye is not human, so you have to take that into account. And yeah, some really great stuff in this story. This fantastic location work. It looks brilliant. The direction is great. Robert Holmes has crafted a great story. And yeah, it's really well done. I can understand some people not liking it, but I can also understand why people would love it. Personally, I think it's a brilliant story and certainly a great work from this era. However, number 1 would be a story that I've always loved since I first watched it, or at least first watched on DVD. I did see it on telly, and I thought I liked it there. I think Two Doctors as well, if I saw a bit of it, on a UK TV Gold season of Doctor Who story repeats. But when I saw it properly on DVD, yeah, I've always loved this story, and such a fantastic story in the writing and execution departments. And I think the character of the Sixth Doctor was an improvement over his first story, and thankfully this story opened his first full season off to an outstanding start. This is my not guilty pleasure, Attack of the Cybermen. Yeah, my not guilty pleasure is a guilty pleasure that I'm proud to be a fan of. I love this story. I think it's handled well. For starters, it's got some of the typical Eric Saywood stories, cliches like a couple of characters go on their own subplots and then eventually end up being killed off. But I think this story is able to make you care for these characters, even for the ones who don't appear on screen that much. You care for them, you want to see them get out alive, and you actually feel more annoyed that they didn't get out alive because you like them more than being annoyed that they didn't get out alive. just because they were just killed off just because. In this case, it's more because you liked them. The Sixth Doctor's personality is better than in Twin Dilemma. It will get better over time, but he's kind of a nice balance, and the story does knock him down a peg or two at the very end after the death of Lytton. I do believe there should have been a story between Resurrection of the Daleks and Attack of the Cybermen, where the two actually got a bit more acquainted with each other, but I still think the chemistry here does work really well. The Cybermen are at full force once again, and the violence is necessary to show the strength of the Cybermen. The Cyber Leader, despite being a little bit fatter and despite being higher on a more main villain, isn't quite as fun to enjoy or enjoyable as the Cyber Leader. He's still really good and has a nice piece of fan service. There's a lot of fan service here. Some of it is not so great, but other parts are brilliant. There's some good music, but there is a bit of bad music, admittedly, but I can overlook that. There's only a few cases of it. And yeah, there's some really great stuff, some great action. There's some not so great characters, but I can overlook those, and some of them have quite good performances, great performances. And yeah, I just really like this. I just really love this story. I find it really enjoyable, really fun, really entertaining, and it's a nice way to spend 90 minutes. People who weren't so sure of the Sixth Doctor in Twin Dynamo, I do recommend you check this story and maybe Vengeance on Varos as well out. If you're not really a fan of the violent stuff, then do check out Mark of the Rani instead. I think that might help a little bit. But yeah, so Attack of the Cybermen is just amazing. It's not 100% perfect, but it's one that I will always love for probably the rest of the time. So that's it from my Sixth Doctor Top 5 Stories ranking. To recap the list, number 5 is The Trial of a Time Lord Parts 5 to 8, The Mind Warp. Number 4 is The Trial of a Time Lord Parts 13 to 14, The Ultimate Foe. Number 3 is Vengeance on Varos. Number 2 is The Two Doctors. And number 1 is Attack of the Cybermen. Yep. Yeah, I'm a fan of that story. I'm proud to be a fan of that story. Ow. But yeah, and that's the Sixth Doctor's era in a nutshell. Well, not a nutshell, that's the Sixth Doctor's era now technically finished. We just have the regeneration at the start of Time the Rani to go, and then that's it. So, I'm going to praise a mug to Colin Baker one more time to say thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for being our Sixth Doctor, and thank you. We will miss you. I mean, yeah, like I said, I've done this every single time. Whether this at the end of the review of the Doctor's final story, at the end of the season ranking, or at the end of the ranking of their top 10/5 stories. But you know what? Can't help it. We gotta salute them in one way or another. So yeah, a toast. And now go and get some toast. Right, that's it from me. Thank you for watching. Now, next time we will be jumping into season 24 with Time in the Rani. And like I said, it might be a rant. I'm not 100% certain because, like Twin Dilemma, it could possibly change, but not as likely this time. But if there is, then there will be one of that. And the same for Dragonfire, which I'll be doing on the Universal channel to replace a video that's been deleted. Silver Nemesis will have a new review though, but I will link the Universal's one in the description below. The new one will be on this channel. There will be a linked video for the Dragonfire one in its place, in that one's place. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. 8 stories. I will be counting it as 1 story. So in that case, there's only 8 Sixth Doctor stories. So I'll be counting Trial of a Time Lord as 4 separate stories. And yeah, I'll be doing that. So I'll be when we get to it, probably 13. By the time we do the but what now? And my honourable mention actually goes to the Mark of the Rani. I think it's the most, not weakest. I think it's the most underrated. them hate it. Number 5, again, I wasn't a huge fan of. But Mind Warp is where the story. However, after rewatching it, I can see it could be a. Yeah, I just think this is a fantastic. But yeah, and when we get to the Gallic for openers and closure, for and then of course the new series. Again, 60th anniversary is coming up. Do something. Do something with Classic Doc. Go. So the only excuse you could say, the only reason you should either any, or at least in the end, this is still in the end that's just something that's with, and I think on screen, and in the end, season 20. Number 2 is another part. Number 2 is a story that does have a bit of the character of the Sixth Doctor might be the weakest element. Part 4. Number 3 is the Two Doctors. No, it's not.